I lost my country, found my creator. My name is Ahmad Riad. I am 24 years old, originally from Syria, and right now I live in the United Arab Emirates as a refugee student. Or at least that is what the paperwork says. Inside, I am still learning who I am becoming. And Islam? Islam is the first place that has ever felt like home. Look, when people talk about Syria, they usually talk about politics or conflict or loss. But before all of that, my memories are soft. Warm sunlight on old stone walls, my mother's voice waking me for school, the smell of my grandmother's bread, so simple, so perfect, as if she baked calm into it. But even as a child, I felt that life was fragile. You know that feeling when the adults whisper in another room, thinking you cannot hear them? I grew up hearing those whispers. Fear has a sound, a heaviness in the doorway. A radio turned too low. A father who used to smile but began to stare through windows as if trying to measure the distance between today and whatever might break tomorrow. And then tomorrow broke. I still cannot describe the moment when we left home. I remember only fragments, my mother folding clothes quickly, my father not talking, the key to our house left on the table. I didn't understand that you can leave a place without leaving your heart behind in one piece. That realization came later. We moved from city to city, country to country, and after a while, I stopped learning people's names because I knew we would not stay long enough. You lose more than a country when you're displaced. You lose your sense of belonging, your rhythm, your innocence, your definition of normal. And I think I lost myself too. To be honest, the hardest part wasn't the danger, it was the silence after. When you finally reach somewhere safe and people expect you to be grateful, to rebuild, to smile, and all you feel is a kind of emptiness you cannot explain. Safety is supposed to fix you, right? But sometimes it just gives you space to finally feel the weight you've been running from. I started to live with this tightness in my chest, a heaviness that woke me up before the alarm, like my body remembered something my mind was trying to forget. I carried stories I never spoke about because I didn't know where to put them. And whenever someone asked where I was from, I would hesitate because the real answer was too long, too painful, and too complicated. And in the UAE, even though life was stable, I still felt like a visitor. Like I was borrowing the air I breathed, unsure how long I was allowed to stay. There is a loneliness that comes with being uprooted. You walk through crowds but feel invisible. You hear laughter, but it bounces off you instead of reaching you. You look at families sitting together and wonder when your life stopped being simple. And deep inside, there was this question. Why me? Not in anger, just confusion. Why was my life written this way? Why was I born into a story too heavy for my age? What was the meaning of all this movement? All this loss? I became someone who smiled politely but felt hollow inside, as if my real self was still wandering somewhere behind me trying to catch up. This is where everything changed for me. One night, I was sitting alone in my small room in the student housing. It was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort you, but exposes you. I remember staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of my own thoughts pressing down on me. I reached for an old box of things from Syria that I had carried through borders, airports, and temporary shelters. Most of it was useless now. Faded papers, broken trinkets, things that only held meaning because they reminded me of a life I no longer lived. But at the bottom, I found something unexpected. A small notebook, my father's handwriting. Seeing his script felt like being touched by the past, gently but deeply. Inside, he had copied verses he loved from old scholars, from poets, from the Quran. Back then, I didn't understand any of it. I was too young, too distracted, too alive in a world that still felt solid beneath my feet. But now, in that quiet room, I read one line that stayed with me. If you feel homeless on earth, look for the one who created home. Something inside me shifted. I don't know why, but that sentence broke something in me. Or maybe it fixed something. Maybe it reached a part of me I had forgotten existed. In that moment, for the first time in years, I didn't feel lost. I felt seen, like Allah had been watching me wander, waiting for me to finally look back. Islam wasn't new to me. I grew up around it. But the Islam I had seen as a child was mostly cultural, routine, tradition. It wasn't alive. But here in the UAE, I began to meet people who prayed with sincerity, people whose calm wasn't fake. And slowly I became curious, not about religion, but about peace. Where did they get it from? What did they know that I didn't? I started listening to lectures online, I started reading, I started asking questions, and Islam didn't rush me. It didn't demand anything from me. It simply waited like a door that had always been open, but I had never walked through. One evening after class, a friend invited me to the mosque. I went because I didn't want to be rude, but something happened there. When I heard the adhan echo through the walls, I felt like the sound was calling someplace deep inside me, a place I had ignored for years. After the prayer, I sat in the back of the mosque by myself. I didn't plan anything, I didn't prepare, but suddenly it felt impossible to pretend I wasn't ready. So I walked to the Imam. My voice was shaking, my hands were cold, and I told him I wanted to say the Shahada. And when I did, when those words left my tongue, it felt like someone returned my soul to me, like the part of me I lost when we fled Syria finally caught up. I cried harder than I expected, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of arrival. Life did not magically become easy. I still struggle. I still miss home. I still wake up some mornings feeling like a stranger in my own skin. But now, I have direction. I have purpose. I have anchors. Islam gave me something I didn't think I would ever feel again. Belonging, not to a place, but to a path. A path that doesn't change when borders do. A path that doesn't collapse when buildings fall. A path that doesn't disappear when life becomes unpredictable. I learned how to pray, not perfectly but sincerely. I learned that prayer wasn't a ritual, it was a conversation. It was me returning again and again to the one constant in my life. And slowly, I felt myself becoming whole. Look, if you feel lost, if you feel like life took more from you than it gave, if you carry pain you don't talk about, know this: home isn't always a country. Sometimes home is a turning of the heart. Ask yourself why certain moments move you. Ask yourself why you feel pulled towards something greater. Sometimes the displacement of your life is actually guidance in disguise. Sometimes losing everything you knew is the only way you make space for everything you were meant to find. And if you're searching, don't rush yourself. Peace doesn't shout, it whispers. And when you're ready, it waits. My name is Ahmad Riad. I lost my country, but I found my creator. And in that journey, I found myself again. If my story reaches even one person who feels like they don't belong anywhere, I hope they know this. You are not wandering. You are being guided. You just haven't arrived yet.